All right, so have you ever seen a company like totally crush it, blow past all the expectations, record profits, amazing revenue, and then their stock, like, dips?
Yeah, it's kind of like a head scratcher, right?
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened with NVIDIA, and it's a little strange, right? So today, we're going to do a deep dive into this analyst report we found that says that actually, NVIDIA is super undervalued.
Oh, wow.
So maybe the market is missing something big here. What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's maybe a disconnect there between the company's performance and how the market is reacting.
So by the end of this deep dive, our listeners will, know if they agree, if this is a buying opportunity, if this is, a bad sign.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Okay.
So first, let's talk numbers, because the numbers are pretty wild.
Yeah.
We're talking a 114% increase in revenue year over year.
Wow, that's huge.
They basically more than doubled their business in a year.
That's impressive.
Net income is also more than double what it was last year.
Huh.
And earnings per share, EPS, jumped from $1.21 to $2.97.
Okay, so for our listeners who, maybe aren't as familiar with EPS, can you break that down for us a little?
Yeah, so EPS, earnings per share, is basically like if all the company's profits were split evenly across all the shares of stock, that's how much each share would get.
Okay, so it's a way to look at like the profitability of the company.
Yeah, exactly.
On a per share basis, guys.
So a jump like that from $1.21 to $2.97 is a big deal.
Yeah, so that suggests that they're not just growing, but like you said, they're getting more profitable.
Exactly.
Which is really important.
So the question is, are these just temporary wins, or can NVIDIA keep this up?
Yeah. Is this sustainable? That's what we need to figure out.
And that's where, we have to go a little deeper, do a little detective work.
Yeah.
So our analyst in this report that we're looking at, they dug into NVIDIA's reports, the financial reports.
Yeah, beyond just the headlines.
Beyond the headlines, and they found some really interesting stuff. For example, increased liquidity. NVIDIA went from having about $26 billion in liquid assets to over $43 billion.
Wow, so what does that mean, practically speaking? What is liquidity?
Yeah, so think of liquidity like a company's savings account.
Yeah.
Like your financial cushion.
Okay.
It's the money they have that's, easily accessible to cover expenses, make moves, make investments.
Okay, so basically the more liquidity a company has, the more flexible they are and the more secure, I guess, financially.
Exactly. More flexibility, more security. So NVIDIA's looking pretty good there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm curious, what else did the analyst find?
Yeah. So another thing that they pointed out was a rise in R&D spending.
Research and development.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that tell us?
Well, this is always a good sign for a tech company, right? Because it shows that they're investing in innovation.
Right.
And it's especially relevant for NVIDIA, right? Since they're really focused on AI and data centers.
Right. And those are huge growth areas, potentially huge growth areas.
Huge, yeah. So essentially they're putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to, trying to be a leader in those areas.
Planting seeds for the future.
Exactly, yeah. They're not just sitting back and enjoying their success. They're actively trying to stay ahead of the curve.
But I got to admit, this next part kind of surprised me. The analyst sees rising inventory as a good thing.
Really?
Isn't that usually a warning sign?
Yeah, usually it means that demand is slowing down and they've got all this product just sitting around.
Right.
But in this case, the analyst thinks that NVIDIA is actually building up their inventory because they expect sales to continue to be strong.
So they're stocking up, they're getting ready.
Yeah, it's like they're stocking the shelves for a big rush of customers.
Interesting.
It's a bold move.
It is a gold move.
But if they're right, it could really pay off.
It's like they're saying we're going to need a bigger warehouse.
Yeah.
But, another way that NVIDIA is, I guess, rewarding investors or trying to boost their stock price is they've been doing a lot of stock buybacks.
Oh, yeah.
And not just a little, a lot.
Yeah, they've been pretty aggressive with that.
So what is that about? What's the strategy there?
Yeah, so when a company buys back its own stock, what it does is it reduces the number of shares that are out there on the market.
Okay.
And so that can actually make the remaining shares more valuable.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's a way for the company to kind of signal to the market that they believe in their own future, right? They think that their stock is undervalued.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly.
So we've got impressive growth, strong financial position, a company that believes in itself, but like you said earlier, the market's not really buying it yet.
Yeah, it's a bit of a puzzle.
So what does our analyst think is going to happen, down the road with the stock price?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They've set a price target of $250.66 per share by January 1st, 2028.
Wow.
So to put that in perspective, that's a 93% increase from where the stock was trading when the analysts put this report out.
That's a huge jump.
It is.
So, like, are they basing this on, like pure optimism, or is there some like actual logic behind this number?
Well, they use like a pretty sophisticated model to come up with that price target.
Okay.
And it takes into account a bunch of different factors, like projected growth in these key markets.
Data centers, AI.
Exactly. And they also look at things like, new and emerging fields where NVIDIA's technology could be used.
Like what?
Autonomous driving.
Oh, okay.
Even like the metaverse, things like that.
Wow. So they're really betting on NVIDIA, like not just staying where they are, but like expanding into all these other areas.
Yeah, continuing to innovate. Exactly.
High risk, high reward kind of thing.
It is, for sure.
But are there any downsides? Like what could go wrong here?
Well, I mean, there's always risks, right? I think one of the biggest challenges for any tech company is just competition.
Yeah, it's fierce out there.
Yeah, things move so fast and a new player could come in and disrupt the whole industry.
Totally.
And then there's also just the kind of cyclical nature of the semiconductor industry to think about.
Okay.
Demand for chips, goes up, goes down, and that could have an impact on NVIDIA's revenue and profits.
So even with all the good stuff, there's no guarantee.
Exactly.
So our analyst here is not like throwing darts at a board. They're actually, making a calculated gamble.
Yeah, they're looking at the data, they're weighing the risks, they're weighing the rewards, and coming to a conclusion.
Okay, so let's talk about their investment strategy, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So what's their approach? And like, is that something that like, regular people like me, could actually use?
Yeah, so their philosophy is really about finding these undervalued opportunities.
Okay.
And they use data, they have a long-term vision.
Right, they're not getting scared off by like, one bad day on the market or whatever.
Exactly, they're not swayed by those short-term fluctuations. They're really focused on the fundamentals of the company and its potential to grow over the long term.
And so you're saying that like, anyone can do this. I don't need like a fancy algorithm or a team of like researchers?
No, I mean, the key principles are pretty accessible.
Okay.
It's about doing your research, understanding the businesses that you're investing in, and having that long-term perspective.
So it's about looking beyond, the hype, the headlines, and really trying to understand what's going on.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, like, even if a company has great fundamentals, the market doesn't always act rationally. Like there's emotions involved.
Absolutely. And I think we see that with NVIDIA, even though they're exceeding expectations, there's still like this uncertainty around the stock.
It's like people are a little hesitant, a little nervous.
Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to understand market sentiment. It's like trying to gauge the mood of the crowd.
Right.
Because even if you love a band, you're probably not going to pay $1,000 for a ticket if everyone else thinks they're washed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you make sense of all this, mixed sentiment around NVIDIA?
Yeah, it's like some people are like, wait and see. They're not sure if NVIDIA can keep this up.
Right. Maybe a little hesitant.
Yeah. And then you have other people, like our analyst, who are like, this is it. This is the time to buy. Everybody else is freaking out. We're jumping in.
Yeah. Buy low, sell high. Right.
Right. Exactly. So how do you make sense of all this?
Well, I mean, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like, we don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
But I think what we've tried to do in this deep dive is like give you the information, the knowledge to kind of make your own decision.
Tools. Yeah, the tools. We've looked at the numbers. We've looked at the analyst's perspective. We've talked about the potential upside, the potential risks.
Right. It's all there. But now you got to like put it all together and decide like, is this right for me?
Exactly.
Maybe you love a good deal. Maybe you're, a risk taker and you want to, get in on this while it's, potentially undervalued.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah, a little more cautious.
Yeah, totally valid.
Mm.
It's a personal decision. And that's the cool thing about investing.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer as long as you're, doing your research, making informed decisions.
Exactly. It's your money. It's your future.
Exactly.
But, what I really like about, what we've talked about today is this is like a blueprint for, how to look at any investment.
Oh, yeah.
Don't just follow the headlines. Don't just, listen to what, some random person on the internet is saying.
Right. Do your own research.
Do your own research. Look at the company, Try to understand the story.
Yeah, look under the hood.
Look under the hood. Exactly.
Be a detective.
Be a detective. Sometimes, the best opportunities are the ones that you gotta dig for a little bit.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
whether you decide to invest in NVIDIA or not, we hope that this deep dive has, given you some tools, some things to think about.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, right? Especially when it comes to your money.
Exactly. So be smart, do your research, and yeah, good luck out there.
Good luck.